Hi everyone, it's Sarah here from Hiking Boots and Posh Pants, and welcome to another episode of She Did It. And today I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming Rachel Elnaugh. Now, Rachel, as many of you know, was the founder and CEO of Red Letter Days. She became more well known when she was the original female dragon in series 1 and 2 of Dragon's Den. She has also written an amazing book called Business Nightmares, where she managed to gather together 20 entrepreneurs who were prepared to talk about the business nightmare side of things. And now she's a co-creator of SourceTV. So welcome, Rachel.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for inviting me on.
Pleasure to have you here. So there's an awful lot going on there. But with us being Hiking Boots and Posh Pants and all about enterprising women after 40, I love speaking to people about the changes that came to them after they turned 40. And you very publicly had some huge changes. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about those?
Well, I would say that the universe kind of forced the changes on me, if I'm honest, because I kind of loved my life in the sense I was at the helm of this big company, Red Letter Days, which was a multi-million turnover business. I was winning awards. I just got on Dragon's Den. And so, like, my life was actually pretty perfect. And it kind of, my whole life kind of crumbled, actually. And I lost the business. It went into administration when I was about 42. And I then went on a very turbulent journey, which I kind of emerged from. And I realize now, looking back, the power of that journey. But at the time I was going through it, it was horrific, actually. And I was in real resistance to it. And I think this is one of the biggest things that I've kind of learned about that whole era, because amazing things came out of it, but it's just that resistance of fighting the flow.
Yeah.
And I just so know that if I can, to make it personal, when I go with the flow of the universe, what the universe is trying where the universe is trying to take me, life is much more beautiful and effortless than when I have it in my mind to go my way, the highway, and try to control.
I think that's one of the reasons why I really did want to interview you, because the changes that people make, the early 40s tends to be a time of reflection and so on. But for you, it was forced upon you, the change that you had. Do you think, though, that being such a fan of, and believer of the law of attraction as I am, do you think that you may have manifested that in order to, get
Yes.
that outcome?
Well, I know I did, but the point is, back then, I didn't really understand properly about the law of attraction. Because I only understood it on a very superficial level, because I think, we all kind of got to know about the law of attraction through The Secret.
Yes.
And it's great when there's a mainstream thing like that kind of puts some things into a very simplistic way. But I think at that point, I didn't really truly understand metaphysical laws, deeply understand the truth of the universe and how it works. And so I had been doing some work around intention. And I had set an intention to create a health spa for the soul. And I'd done, without realizing it, I'd done some massively powerful intention setting work, literally at the desk of Andrew Carnegie, who I didn't realize at the time, but he was the mentor of Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
I actually, at his desk in Skibo Castle in Scotland, wrote the business plan and set the intention in motion. My intention was to sell Red Letter Days for £10 million so I could create a health spa for the soul.
Yeah.
So in my logical mind, I had worked out that to create this health spa for the soul, I would need to build this business, sell it for £10 million, take the money and put the money into this health spa for the soul. But of course, the universe is infinite intelligence. So that intention to create a health spa for the soul Um, that's not about money at all. To create truly, if you're going to create a health spa for the soul, you really need to go on a journey of discovery and healing and enlightenment so that you're able to create, the universe can see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you referred to it as, obviously a business nightmare, and you said it was truly awful, and you came up against a lot of resistance. What got you through all of that? I mean, it was a very public thing as well, so it was not just how you were dealing with it yourself. You had to deal with it, everybody looking in on what was happening as well. Where did you find the strength to get through it?
Well, I think that was all part of the teaching, because it was really interesting, because when the whole thing crashed, it was very, the duality of the response was really vivid. So there were people over here who were like, oh, you poor thing, this is terrible, you'll never recover, oh my God, what a disaster. And then over here, there was people saying, wow, this is, you will look back and think this is the best thing that ever happened to you. This is such a rich teaching. You probably can't see it now, but this is such a blessing. And so there were two really diametrically opposed responses to it. And it was quite interesting to me, because I noticed that actually it had actually the two different responses had actually nothing to do with me. It was all to do with the people and their mindset that I was being shown. So typically negative people were saying the negative things, and really positive people were saying positive things.
Yeah.
And so I started to really notice that I was being given lots of teachings the whole way through. And one of the most powerful things that came almost immediately on the heels of this meltdown was opportunity. And because I'd just been on Dragon's Den, it was very high profile in the media. So it was literally in every newspaper. It was even on Channel 4 News and Breakfast News. I mean, it was very high profile.
Yeah.
And in the wake of that, first of all, I got a book deal of a cash advance to write any book that I wanted, and that was an amazing blessing. Mm-hmm. And I was asked to speak at events. So suddenly, this whole new world was opening up for me. Almost instantly, that the old one kind of closed down. They say, wherever a door closes, somewhere a window opens, or the sound of music, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that was very much like that for me. So it was like everything that I was losing, new things were opening for me.
And were you ready for those opportunities? I mean, to suddenly, were you used to public speaking, and had you written anything before? Or was it completely new to you?
Completely. And to be absolutely honest, because I just sort of lost all of my wealth, really, in the sense of my business was the kind of engine that was creating all of my cash flow and money, and I literally lost it overnight. And because I had this sort of dragon status, and there'd been 2.5 years of kind of struggle around cash flow, I was very highly leveraged as well. So I kind of, I was in quite a lot of debt, and I had, expensive cars on finance and all sorts of, I was really highly leveraged. A lot of people were back then, before the whole crash in 2008, very easy for me to get credit. And so I kind of needed the money. So I was being offered, thousands of pounds to go and speak at events. And I literally had to face my fear and just grit my teeth. And the first 30 events that I did, I just got through them through just sheer facing my fear and just doing whatever I needed to get through it. And that literally was just getting through it. And it was only after about doing 30 like that I just thought, I've got to learn how to do this properly. I've got to learn how to get good and be professional. And I started to move from this fear place into this space of gratitude of like, what a gift this is to be invited to speak and be able to influence all these people.
Yeah.
And I owe it to these people and to the people who are paying me the money to get really good at this. And that's when I embarked and opened into getting coaches and mentors, and I did voice coaching and presentation coaching, and I really made it my business to start getting really good at public speaking and to overcome my fear. And the same thing with the book, actually. You know, I got the money and I pretty much, it was absorbed into firefighting, you know, crisis firefighting money. And I was then left with the problem of how to write the book. And literally, if I'd had the money to give back to the publisher who was breathing down my neck saying, "Where's the book?" If I'd literally had the money to give back, I would have given it back and not written it. And it was hugely cathartic to be forced to write that book.
Yeah. We've got to the stage where you're coming through this horrendous time, you're opening your eyes to opportunities, and I love the fact that you just took action. I'm a big fan of, sometimes we don't know, you know, exactly where we're going, but I think if you start to take action, little steps at a time, the path starts to unfold for you. Did you have a bigger plan at that stage, or were you literally just sort of getting through each stage to move it all forward?
For a while, I was very reactive, because actually what happened is loads of opportunities started to flow, and so I suddenly had all of this stuff coming at me of like, get involved in this and get involved in this, and would you become my, you know, non-exec director of this company? And I suddenly got too much. I went from having just this one focus into having a whole portfolio. And one of the really crucial turning points, and this ties back into Andrew Carnegie again, was I was speaking at an event in Gleneagles, and the speaker after me, because I was first on, the speaker after me talked about the 3 most influential books of his life, and one of them was Think and Grow Rich. And it was the 3rd time that people had talked about it. And it was on my radar, but I'd never actually read it. And he was just talking about how powerful it was, and I got that book, and as a result wrote my definite chief aim statement, which is one of the things that Napoleon Hill talks about this having focus. And it was only when I wrote my definite chief aim statement, which was to create £10 million cash at bank through inspiring, empowering and motivating others on their entrepreneurial journey, that was it. It gave my life a beautiful clarity, because suddenly everything, if I could say yes to that statement, if an opportunity matched that statement, I could say yes. And if it didn't, I could say no. And then what actually happened after I worked to that definite chief aim statement, everything that manifested seemed to be aligned to the definite chief aim statement. Yeah, so it helped me on a logical decision-making basis. But actually what happened after a while is the universe then started to only send me stuff that is aligned to it. Clarity and focus are really key, because if your focus is diluted across loads of things, you get a very confused outcome, you know, because the universe is sending you all sorts of things. When you start getting really clear about what you do want, then you start only getting stuff matched to that, and then life suddenly starts to really get into momentum and flow, because you're just attracting amazing stuff aligned to what you do want.
Yeah.
And so you can build up a lot of energetic momentum that way.
When you wrote Business Nightmares and you gathered together the other entrepreneurs and heard their stories, was there anything that you learnt from that as well, from the others' experience?
Oh yeah, because the inspiration for the book really came because the publisher basically said, you know, here's a lump sum and you can write anything you want. We just want it quick, because I'd just been on television and they knew whatever I wrote would sell. And obviously I couldn't write about how I made it. You know, I had to, and it was really interesting because I had to write something about, and I wanted to write something about the fine line between success and failure, because when everything crashed, so many people wrote to me, and I'm talking about high-profile entrepreneurs who shared their own journey, and I realized that all these people that I thought were doing really, really well and life was flowing were wrestling with massive things behind the scenes. And so I got that the whole of business is an illusion. And so I really wanted to explore that illusion, that these people you think might be doing really brilliantly, to tell the real story of that fine line between success and failure, and either how people had pulled back from the brink of that, or if they fell over the edge, how they'd kind of phoenixed back from it.
Yeah.
And so it became a very cathartic journey of discovery and learning, and also just interviewing incredible people. And I interviewed Jeffrey Archer, and it was great fun, to I sort of made the book into fun, because it was an opportunity to interview people and explore the lives of entrepreneurs, so I did learn a huge amount.
I think it's always interesting with failure. I've read oodles of autobiographies, and I find it so reassuring, and I think people fear failure all the time. It can stop them from speaking up about something, or it can stop them from starting a business or making big decisions. But the majority of people who are deemed successful and who have succeeded have all failed so many times, and speak of the lessons that were learnt from those failures. What would you say was the biggest lesson you learnt from the collapse of Red Letter Days?
So the thing is, at a metaphysical level, there is no such thing as failure. Failure is the same thing as good, evil. It's all duality. So duality has us sorting everything into good, bad. Hence why I had those two types of people, the people saying, oh, this is amazing, and other people saying, oh, this is terrible. It's all duality. And actually metaphysical work, and this kind of higher level work, is how do we transcend duality and see that everything is a blessing? Because in my world now, everything is a teaching, everything is a blessing. And so the only work really is to sit with what we're being shown, and like, what is the teaching in this? What am I being shown? And when we can really sit with that, we transmute it. And when we learn from it, then we can take that lesson, and then we can feed it into what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
It's a big part of our life is healing, particularly trauma. And so a big part of my journey was trauma healing, and and that's the thing, is moving out of the resistance of duality, which has us sorting into right, wrong, good, bad. And we want to go towards pleasure and away from pain. And it's moving away from that into total trust, acceptance, and surrender to everything in our life experience, and not it being in battle.
I think that's it. Sometimes it's taking responsibility, isn't it? And that's going back to Think and Grow Rich again. It's about being responsible for things that happen in your life. And once you take that responsibility, then it's an awful lot easier to move forwards and to find the blessings in the lessons. Now, you have 5 boys.
Yes.
Which I think is an amazing thing in itself. I can't imagine that has been an easy ride, although probably a very pleasurable one. Talk us through a little bit of where you are now.
So where am I now? I've kind of completely redesigned my life, I think, because I've got so much more space in my life now. If I think back to my kind of Red Letter Days era, I very much was a busyness woman. And so my life was about 90% output and action and activity, and probably only 10% input. And now I'd say my life is pretty much 50-50. So I have 50% of my time, which is just stillness, meditation, input, reading, going to events, listening, absorbing, and then moving to inspired action. So when I feel the rising of energy and inspiration, then I can download and output incredible stuff. But it's like I can kind of, use the silence and the stillness to wait for the inspiration to bubble up. And that's certainly how I wrote my second book. prosperity. But that literally, I'd been writing affirmations about that for 3 years, like Louise Hay style affirmations.
Yes.
I have written a book called Prosperity, and it's selling millions, and I'm a Hay House author, and yada-da-da-da. And I was writing these affirmations for years, and like, where is this book? What I can't seem to write this book. And then it was like I did the energy work, and I did a lot of metaphysical work, and I went to Peru and did work with the shamans and found a great teacher in Davina McHale, and then literally last spring, after the spring equinox, came back from a weekend with Davina where we did some really powerful work and just downloaded this book in 5 days. And I was just every
Wow.
day writing, and it just like landed. It was like a birth, it's like a long pregnancy, and then suddenly the baby's coming and it's going to be born.
It's coming
and
now.
and it literally just came through. Every morning for 5 days, I just woke up literally with my laptop in bed, just writing solidly for 5 days. And it didn't actually need much editing as well. It was pretty much complete download, and that's beautiful when that happens. But
Yeah.
it's like getting the energetic everything into alignment so that stuff can flow. It's like getting the kinks out of the hose pipe, and then the water can just come through. It's kind of a bit like that, really.
I loved what you said. You featured in a book by Jane Noble Knight, The Pilgrim Mothers, and one of the things that you said was that the future isn't about jobs and employment. It's about different projects and revenue streams, and I think that's what I love about where you were and where you are now, is you're very instinctive about how you're moving forward. Do you see that as a long-term thing? Do you see this as this is how you will map out from now on?
So what is happening at the moment, and that everything is an ongoing evolution, but we are entering a new golden era, that we are birthing a new era. This is the next stage of evolution. And so a big part of Source, Source is a gathering of evolutionaries, and so there are many people who are carrying the teachings of the new era. We're in a kind of crossover period of moving out of the old paradigm into this new paradigm. The era we're coming out of is an era of command and control, and very much the way that everything has been set up, education, it's all about grooming humans to kind of be compliant 9-to-5 workers. And now we're opening into understanding about metaphysics and law of attraction and the powers of the universe, and this knowledge, which has only been held by the kind of elite few, is now being made available to millions of people by the internet. Suddenly we're opening to this new era, which is all about empower and inspire. And it's about freedom, and it's about understanding that you don't need to get a 9-to-5 job and have one employer and then kind of work all your life and then retire and then get a pension or something. It's about creating a life where you can create revenue streams around things that you love. It's about creating a life of freedom where you can work with your flow. So when you feel like writing a book, you write a book. And when you don't, when you're not ready to, if you don't feel like going to work, you can meditate or you can be on input. So you're creating a life which is a beautiful life of freedom and flow and being in that. And that's what really the book of prosperity is about creating that life of effortless flow where you are aligned to your soul purpose and you're tuning in and you're in this lovely place of 50% input and then moving to inspired action and manifesting amazing stuff effortlessly, because that is the thing. Life shouldn't be a struggle. Life shouldn't feel like hard work and drudgery, and life should feel magical and abundant. And that's the kind of life I think that we are creating for all.
My generation and ahead of me that are almost like, if you haven't worked really hard, if you haven't worked yourself into the ground, you don't deserve some kind of abundance. And I think that's changing. And certainly I'm loving what's going on with the internet. I mean, the opportunities that are open to everyone now. If you've got a laptop and an idea and a sense of purpose to do something, you can. There are, it's so much more accessible now to do whatever it is you would like to do. It's a learning process, isn't it? Working out how to do it. So I do think that we are very much seeing, you're absolutely right, some huge changes in how we're able to live our lives and what financial freedom actually gives us now.
So that's the thing to understand, that we have very deep programming, and that deep programming comes from our parents, and it comes from like the educational system. And so that is part of the journey. This evolutionary journey is transforming and transmuting and transcending that programming, because the problem is we can work really, 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 really hard and amass an amount of money, but if we don't feel we deserve it, we'll sabotage it and we'll lose it,
and it will go.
And I exactly know that with my own journey, and it took me a lot of work and metaphysical journeying to get to understand how I'd completely sabotaged my Red Letter Days business. And so these patterns, and you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of these patterns are very subconscious and deep, and that's why it often takes a mentor or a coach, or going on transformational journeys, or going to the shamans in Peru and working with guides and teachers, so that you can unearth these blocks and these limiting beliefs and this deep programming and transmute it so that you don't have to keep attracting the same thing. And that work is really powerful, because do it at a metaphysical level, make those adjustments at a metaphysical level, your whole life transforms effortlessly. It has to.
Yeah.
Because we are the point of attraction.
Finally, Rachel, I know there's going to be a lot of women watching this who may be maybe having a bit of a hard time themselves at the moment. What would your best piece of advice be to somebody who feels right now that they are in rock bottom state? What would be your advice to help them move forward?
I actually asked this very same question of Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote Conversations with God, because I interviewed him for Source. And I said, what would you say to someone who is at rock bottom? Maybe they're facing bankruptcy or divorce or complete business meltdown, whatever it is. And he just said, the solution I would offer is gratitude. Fall to your knees and say, thank you, God, thank you for this challenge. And that's quite a kind of, it's like, oh, how could I possibly be grateful for this? But in the context that everything is a teaching, if we can come out of resistance for whatever it is we're fighting, and we can actually stop the struggle and go with that flow. And I remember very vividly when I was filming Dragon's Den in the second series, and Red Letter Days was really slipping away from me, and I was literally going into battle every day, and I was just like, couldn't sleep, and it was just a nightmare. I remember talking to Simon Woodroffe about it. Actually, it was in series 1, because series 1. It was definitely Simon Woodroffe, series 1. And I kind of confided in him, like, I'm really having a struggle here, and it's just like every day's a battle. And he just said, Rachel, if life is a real struggle, stop swimming and see where the current takes you. And it's such good advice, because we are trained that life should be a battle and we've got to fight. Whereas actually the universe is constantly teaching us and bringing us things and showing us exactly what is working and what isn't. So if life is a complete struggle and business is going wrong, it's a sure sign that you're not doing it right. I mean, so why on earth in that situation would you want to battle on? And the really important thing to do is just to take fear out of the equation and explore the fear and just allow, okay, what if I lost this business? What's the worst possible thing that could happen? Okay, I might lose my house. Right, if I lost my house, what would happen then? Where would I go and live? Okay, so I'd move back to my parents. What would happen then? What would happen then? Because it's moving out of fear into faith that is the really key thing, because fear has us in a small space. If we can move into a place of faith and say, okay, universe, I trust in you, I have faith. This isn't working. I'm going to hand it over. Show me
what you've got.
Show me what to do. Send me guidance. And that's what essentially what prayer is. It's basically having faith in a higher power. And the thing about the universe, the universal laws, the universe cannot intervene unless it is asked. And it's so important to say, okay, right, now I'm going to come into alignment. I'm going to pray. Show me what I need to do. And I'm ready to receive. And this is the really key thing. After having asked, be very receptive to what shows up in that space. And you know, no matter how strange it is, might be an odd invitation, might be a odd person that says, I can help you, but you don't quite work out, you can't logically work out how they can help, but they might be the stepping stone to the very person. And even if you lose the business, it could be the best thing that ever happened to you. If I look back at myself, people often say to me, oh, what could you have done to have kept Red Letter Days and not lost it? And I recognize that I needed to let go of that business, because if I hadn't let go of that, all of the amazing things that then flowed wouldn't have come in.
Yeah.
So, you know, life is a journey, and enjoying that journey is you know, enjoy the journey and release resistance and just have fun with every aspect of it is really key.
It's great advice. Thank you so much, Rachel. I think taking that power and responsibility back to yourself and recognizing that you do have choices, no matter, you might not like them all at the time, but there are choices and opportunities that come your way. So thank you, Rachel, for being so generous with answering all of those questions. It was a pleasure to speak to you. And if you would like to know more about Rachel and SourceTV, I will make sure that I put all the links to the websites and Facebook pages for Rachel as well underneath here on the blog post. And if you would like to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, then obviously you'll be informed of any other wonderfully inspiring women we have coming up on She Did It as well. So thank you very much again, Rachel, and
Thank you.
see you again.
Okay, bye for now.